I do welcome you to this edition of the Ask the CEO, sorry. My name is John Jimmy Musindi, and you're very much welcome to this program. We come to you live from Church House in the heart of Kampala. Now, the topic today that we are going to discuss is character and professionalism in business. I do welcome you once more. This is a decisive program which is meant to educate, instigate, admonish and trigger off the youths to become world-class and excellent performers. In this program, we also host top managers and CEOs who enlighten us on what it takes to be the topmost at the top when you get there. Now, today, I must inform you that this program is powered by the Young and Flourishing Foundation, which is abbreviated as Y&F, which is an organization that envisions an equipped and empowered generation of young people, and of course, who are leading the transformation of Africa. I also do want you to note that the Young and Flourishing, it's a mission which is to transform Africa through training, inspiring, and equipping young people to create solutions for their socio-economic emancipation. Also, to take note is that Young and Flourishing envisions a network of about 50 million world-class leaders and, of course, mentors in Africa by 2043. Today, we are glad to have one of the most influential people in the field of architecture. And of course, I know architecture program is one of the hardest programs that many people look at, especially at Uganda's topmost university, Makerere. But the gentleman I have with me is not one you can consider faint-hearted, I must say. He is architect Jesse Tukacungurwa, who is a registered architect. He's also a lecturer at Makerere University. He's a man of character and a rare species in the business environment. And that is why we are hosting him today to talk about that character and professionalism in business. I do welcome you to the show, Mr. Architect Jesse Tukacungurwa.
Good evening, Jimmy. Thank you. Welcome.
I hope I've gotten the name right.
Perfect.
Okay,
Perfect.
Thank you. Please have a word and say hello to our viewers.
Good evening, viewers. I am blessed and happy to be here, and I'd like to thank Family TV for hosting me, as well as Young and Flourishing Foundation. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that. Now, architect Jesse, this program is Ask the CEO. We would first of all to understand, many viewers actually out there may not know what architect is about. So I would love you to give that introduction for one to have that feel of what are they talking about.
Thank you, Jimmy. Indeed, you are right. Not many people know what an architect does or who an architect is. And we are a profession that shapes the built environment, that shapes the world as we see it. We are architects are a special breed because if you recall in Genesis, the Lord said, "Let there be," and He made. Let these things be. Architects, I can't equate them to God, absolutely not. But they are responsible for the built environment, in shaping it, in modeling it, in visioning it, and then that's how we see cities, spaces, buildings, and things like that. Yeah.
Well, now you've explained to us who an architect is, we understand. But of course, in studio with me is architect Jesse Tukacungurwa. So one of the principles of this program is that we always want to hear the story of our guest. So we would love now to understand who is architect Jesse Tukacungurwa, now that we've known who is an architect in general is. Take us through your journey.
Well, architect Jesse Tukacungurwa is a man who is, first of all, a born-again Christian. Secondly, I am married, one wife, I must say, and 2 lovely children. I am also an architect, as you've mentioned. In addition to practicing architecture, I also teach architecture. So I teach at Macquarie University, Department of Architecture and Physical Planning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
My story, well, starts from just a young boy in Uganda, like many of us. We are a generation that, I come from that generation that sort of grew out of sort of village context. And I grew up in Kampala city, so I am born and bred of this city. I'm glad to be in the heart of it.
Not like some of us who are born and bred in Manafa.
Yes, but I have my foot there in the village as well. I love the countryside. But that's me. I am a practicing architect. I have a passion for education. I have a passion for justice and fairness. And I guess that ties into character, what we'll be talking about. And just human life. I love life. I love, yeah. I finished my university education in, from primary, I went to Nakasero Primary School. And I thank God that school is still there. Went to St. Mary's College, Kisui, yeah, otherwise known as SMAC.
Yeah.
And there I went to the university and did this program called architecture. Frankly, I got in there. At first, I did not really know what it's about. I wanted to do economics at the time, but God took me there. And I found my calling there. And I found that that's where I can be and be the best of who I am and how I can serve in my giftings. So I graduated in 2004, class of 1999, architecture. Kudos to you out there. And since then, because the program is very long, you study for 5 years.
Oh.
You train under a
long.
registered architect. You are mentored for 2 years before you can actually
Those are 7
fly.
actually.
They're
now.
7 years. And even when you start, you're still being mentored because you never arrive. So we are constantly learning and growing. So I've been practicing for over 17 years.
Wow.
Beautiful years, I must say.
That's, of course, that time comes with a lot of rich experience. You know, you've been mentored through school and, okay, wow. So how has been the journey in practice?
Well, it's been a journey of ups and downs. Architecture has its sweet moments. And I think it always depends on what somebody is in it for. Yeah. Personally, my joy is to see creativity come alive, coming from a sketch, a little drawing on a table, yeah, to seeing this reality and people living and walking through a space that you visioned. In your mind, you saw it, but people didn't see it. And those are the high moments. I remember working on a project, if I may say. I actually worked on a project, St. Francis Chapel, Makerere. And I remember the first day it opened, and I saw the church fill up, and people enjoying the space, and the quality of the sound, and just how people walked in. And for me, that was one of the highlights of my career as an architect. Yeah.
Wow.
I must say, there are challenges with our profession regarding things like remuneration, our scale of fees, even appreciation.
Just as any other profession anyway.
Absolutely. People might not know what an architect is, but an architect is a very, very important profession in our society. It's very unfortunate that we don't have as many, but the number is growing. Yeah. But the important thing is The architect is a very noble profession. The word noble means a profession that is honorable, if I might add. Yeah, we put ourselves up there with doctors. This is a very honorable profession. The word profession, and that's why we don't do things like advertising. We don't do things like taking commissions or going behind people. We are supposed to be, honorable, an honorable profession.
Architect Tukacungurwa, we know you have been advocating for character, and actually at one moment you started an organization called Character Incorporated. Talk about that. Before we even go into details of that, what is character to you as an individual?
Character is, in my view, is a set of values that are majorly empathetic. In other words, values that are considerate of other people beyond yourself. I'm talking of things like integrity, yeah? Being one whole person. I'm talking of things like honesty. When I say I'm going to come for a show and be on time, I have to be there at whatever cost. Yeah? I think the cliche is being a man of your word. Man or woman. Character is faithfulness. Character is diligence. Yeah? If you're given a task as an anchor, Jimmy, you do your best in that space, and you are there, and people are not wondering what's happened. Yeah, character is kindness and all these values. So I think character is a set of values. So when I finished school, I had a group of friends. We were thinking, yeah, the likes of some of them are in Young and Flourishing, mentors. And we came to the realization that what our society needs as Uganda, and I'm going to talk of Uganda because this is my context, this is something that is a global need, is men and women of character. And nobody at the time when I finished school was talking about it. Yeah? In contrast, surprisingly, Jimmy, the other side, what I call the darkness, was speaking louder and teaching people things like you'll hear a saying like Gava Mukulia. Can you imagine? And that is a slogan that is going around. Yeah. And nobody is saying hard work pays. We don't hear these things as much. And we realized, hey guys, let's come together and let's talk about this. Let us we like using this saying, if I might use it. It was coined by somebody who said that instead of cursing the darkness, let us light a candle. Yeah, Jimmy.
To take away that darkness.
Let us begin to talk character. Let us applaud men and women of character. Yeah? Our society is in danger because at the time people were applauding men and women with no character. And I thought that was upside down. So we felt...
Isn't that ridiculous?
It is, Do people stand out and say, that was a man of character? Let us applaud him. Let's look up to that person who has diligently started a business from zero and has grown it through hard work.
To somewhere.
Those are the heroes of our society.
Yeah.
Not people who woke up in the morning and were somewhere and you're questioning how they got there. Not people who say this in the daytime and at night there's something else. To their families. What is the testimony of people's families? So we wanted to applaud that. We wanted character to speak. And we were worried about the next generation at the time. We were saying, who is telling the next leader of tomorrow, right now, a young man, that, hey, you need to be a man and woman of character, so that tomorrow we can see a better communities, a better society.
Wow, you really give good insights about character. We have seen many buildings collapse under your watch as architects, I do not want to zero down to you because I've not seen one collapse that you've worked on. What is this about? Do we say, because you talked about architects being few, that some quacks are coming into the profession who are leading to this, or it is the character of the architects who are actually professional, but they choose to do work which is not professional, doesn't meet the standards, because property is being lost, lives are being lost. So a lot of losses are being incurred because of buildings that are collapsing. They may not take lives, property might not be destroyed by these buildings, but there is no value for money. You find a multi-million building collapsing, and this is really sad. You find people crying. Why have we gotten to this level?
Yeah, Jimmy, I am as I am disheartened and sad when these things happen, just like you, and just like everybody in society. It is very sad to hear a building has collapsed and one or two fundis have lost their lives on a site. This is a very complex discussion, and I just want to bottom line this. It's the lack of character, in my view. There are many reasons. Building is a building is serious. It's serious. This building we're in, people are going to walk in and out for over 100 years. They're going to experience this space. It's going to shape their moods, their life for a long time. It has to stand for many years. Yeah? It has to look a certain way for the purpose. It has to breathe and light. There are so many. I always tell my clients, people I meet, that we are like heart surgeons. Our work is as complex as heart surgery. And one of the biggest challenges we have is society, our developers, not appreciating the value of an architect. Yeah? And that I think sometimes leads to issues. Yeah? If you want to put up, I mean developers and all these things, the places where these things have happened, there are bodies that do investigations and do follow-up and are supposed to regulate, and they find that the building is put up without a plan. You find there's so many reasons, it's case by case, but it's normally the lack of professionalism on a construction site. From its inception as an idea, the building coming up as an idea, to execution and actually use. So buildings have a life. It's not just that you put this up and go. No, there's a life. We call it the life cycle of a building. The challenge we're having is many some members in the community are doing it their way. Everybody thinks they can put up a building, Jimmy. It's complex. I said
which is unfortunate.
It is very equated to heart surgery, and I wish the society could think of it that way and respect the value of professionals. There is a whole team of professionals responsible for coming up with buildings, and wherever there have been buildings collapsing, there's always a lack of it. Now, even further to that, amongst architects, and architects are not, they're human beings. They are architects that have made mistakes. Should I say mistakes or misbehaved? Who have acted out of character. Yeah? And on these sites we find somebody has appointed an architect who perhaps doesn't care as much, perhaps is not as thorough. If you go to take if you go to heart surgeons, there is one who takes care, who handles it, and then there are those where it goes wrong. So find an architect who will take responsibility. And responsibility, by the way, is one of the character values. We need to take responsibility. It's a big character value. Who takes responsibility of your work, pay him. Yeah?
Yeah.
The cost of an architect vis-a-vis the cost of a collapsed building, Jimmy, you can do the math. But it really boils down to character and professionalism. We use in our field, we use the word professionalism. Yeah.
Choose the right people, choose the right contractors. Do not pick somebody because they learned how to put a brick and cement somewhere together and put up a structure, and then you think, I'm good to go. So you might have to learn something. Actually, you must not even might. You must have something you learn from this program because it's meant to grow you and add value to you, the viewer out there. Now, as we continue to understand more about architect, I would love to understand from you. I believe you've heard of the phrase which says, speak like a Ugandan or speak like a businessman. Have you, by any chance?
I have, absolutely.
Okay, wow, good.
Absolutely.
So, how do Ugandan businessmen speak? Because you've heard of the phrase, and what can we do differently? Is it even possible in this corrupt environment? Because when somebody says, speak like a businessman,
All right.
Since you understand that, we'd love to understand how this can be done differently, or how possible is it in this corrupt environment that we operate?
Jimmy, before I answer that, I just want to put it out there that most Ugandans have character. You would not believe it, but most Ugandans actually have character. And I give the example every morning when we're driving to work. Yeah? The majority of people stay in the lane and drive. It's just a few, the one or two, that break the rules and drive on the other lane. If you notice clear, the majority actually stay in line and wait. And really, that's very encouraging. The only challenge is these people on the wrong lane, the people on the wrong lane are louder and noticed, and they spoil the good milk. You know how they say a speck spoils the entire milk, however good it is. And it's very unfortunate. So I like to say most business men and people that I meet are quite professional about the way they do their things. Many of them are. And when they're genuinely in business and have gone far, you'll find that they actually value professionalism and all these things. But I think the business you're talking about is what I called at the beginning the darkness. When you talk, it's really the language of under the backside, in the dark, that kind of that thing. I have, and it's most unfortunate. I have faced it. I think as a professional, something I learned early in life from my mentors, and we'll be talking about that later, is to know when to walk away, when to go, when to walk away. When it doesn't, it's not right.
Yeah.
And I think normally this, what you call that kind of dark business, I would like to call it the dark business, always ends up badly, not just for the architect. And in business, it is a short-term gain, yeah? Because you're thinking short-term. Let me get this little commission, yeah, to do this and enjoy now. But you're forgetting about the future. I'm going to give you the most common scenario for architects. We supervise contractors. We supervise execution of work. Jimmy gives me money to put up a building. He gives a contractor money to execute. I design, he executes. Jimmy says, Jesse, supervise for me. I'm going to pay only when you say the work is okay at different stages. Jesse's contractor comes to Jesse. I'm going to give you a commission for you to approve my work at this amount. That is typical. What do you say at that time? That's a commission. It's a bribe. let's miss words. It's a bribe. What does Jesse do at that time? Jesse has a choice at the point to say, hey, no, do your work right. I will not take this. Yeah, and don't do this again. I am not that kind of, this is not right, you know that. Or Jesse has a right to take that. And it's at that point that we are all tested. And I'm not just talking about architecture. I think this is a scenario that happens broadly, generally in our country. And it's at that point that you have to make a choice. Yeah? And normally you are thinking short-term gain. But the long term is, if you don't take that choice, the long term is, hey, Jim is going to get a lovely building. The contractor is going to do a good job and get more work. The short term is, Jesse will get a kickback. And normally, that kickback has no value. Because I've gotten money for nothing I've done. It's going to be wasted. Short term. The contractor is going to do a shoddy job. Jimmy will get a poor building. Jimmy's building might collapse.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Somebody might lose their lives for my short-term gain. And that's why I think character is important. Because you're empathetic about society, about your client. You're empathetic about the contractor himself. But you value your professionalism. Even you as an individual, you're thinking long-term. That same contractor is going to find you on another site. And remember the little kickback he gave you. Do you have any moral authority to talk to him at that point?
Surely not.
Surely not. All you can't talk. You've taken the 30 pieces of silver. It's done. So I think surely this is it just comes down to having just good character. Just be integrity. Have integrity.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a much better value to aspire to than what we call the darkness. If you have integrity, and that's why I applaud the young and flourishing, share your story with others so that it can be better. Yeah.
Now, you talk more about this darkness. It has failed many prospects and visions of very many young people out there. What advice would you have?
This is Church of Uganda Family.
What advice would you have for a young African youth out there who has lost hope because of this rampant corruption and nepotism in Africa, that some have lost out? Hope, and wherever they go, they are failed by these deals. They don't talk that business language, so they're discouraged.
Yeah, I hear you. I remember leaving school and thinking the same. But I'd like to encourage young people in Africa and the ones listening. First of all, that life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Think long term. I think you want to work in a way that you are going to be there for a long term. At the beginning, you will be tested. At the beginning, you might not get the certain joys in life that you think are joys, short term. But it's a long term journey. Yeah? And I encourage young people to think long term. 10 years from now, I have a client whom I worked for 10 years ago. She looked for me because 10 years ago, I did a good job for her. And she said, I don't want any other architect. And at the time, I was doing her the service, and I did it my best. And when you're much younger, you have the energy, you have so much in going your way. So I encourage young people, do be diligent at what you do now, because you will be remembered by your works now in the future. Secondly, get a mentor. Young and Flourishing Foundation builds its core thinking and philosophy on the spirit of mentorship, that where I have gone, I can teach others to follow me and show them the way. I have been practicing for 7 years. I have 2 very good professional mentors. And once in a while, I buy them lunch and we have a talk. I tell them where I am.
Which is life. A good gesture.
And they tell me, oh, Jesse, okay, there's this little thing. You're going through this place. Watch out for this. And these are people who have, at the tail end of their profession, and they've done so much work, so much, many interesting things. And I encourage young people, always have a mentor. It's good to have mentors, people you look up to, who you can sit at their feet and learn from. Have the humility. Never think you've arrived. And this is something I also teach at the university as well. Because learning is, if you're not learning, they say, and growing, you're dying. Young people, build your trade. I am in school. I teach, but I am doing research right now, doctorate research, and I'm still in school. I told my son that I've gone back to school, and he couldn't believe it. I encourage young people, keep learning, grow your trade, but always remain humble. Humility is such a powerful trait. We just can't ignore it. Humble to realize that you don't know much, you haven't arrived, you keep learning, you keep growing, you run your race. That's also another important thing, Jimmy.
True.
But difficult.
Very
running
much.
Your race. I encourage young people to run their race. And running your race has a lot to do with self-esteem. Appreciating and content in who you are and knowing who you are. When I've taught many generations of architects as a teacher, because I left school but remained teaching and sharing my trade. I still share my trade at the university. It's part of service, giving back. There have been generations of architects. I find architects whom I've trained doing what society would identify as more successful.
Wow.
He's driving a bigger car. He's doing but I am very glad. I know who I am. When I meet I know who I am. I am not defined. And young people, I think we are not defined by materialism, but we are defined by who we really are, really to the core. That's the intent.
Which actually must be the case.
Absolutely. And that's a very strong word I encourage young people. Don't look at others and what they have or are doing and panic. No, don't. Run your own race. That God has given you this beautiful life, a beautiful gifting as an anchor, as a journalist, and do your job well, enjoy it, and don't worry about the guys at CNN or wherever. Wherever you think you want to compare yourself to. Run your own race, please.
That is really nice. You've talked about somebody being themselves. Yeah. My mother always tells me something that everyone who keeps saying, I know, they actually do not know. It is that one who admits that they do not know that seeks to understand more and add on what they already know. So when you talk about young people having that self-esteem, being humble to know and learn more, it's really an important aspect of life, that even when you know something, you always accept to be taught and add something. I know as a mentor at Young and Flourishing, as Church of Uganda Family TV, we appreciate the optimistic values that you impart in people, especially young people like you're doing now, because many of them have lost hope. They are very pessimistic in their thoughts, but such optimistic words are actually good. They create a new generation of character, which is now being raised by you who are in the system. And we hope that we shall always host you again to have more of these discussions in regard to especially character. I feel We can even have a full hour just to discuss character, because it is the root cause of many of the challenges society faces today in many sectors of life, not just architect alone. But I would love to pick your mind on what you think has not really been done in architect that you think should be done. Has government done enough? Has society embraced that environment that everybody should work in, that puts the youth out there up in architect? Even you seniors who are within, a few of you might be flourishing when actually many out there are really doing bad, and maybe that's why many are disgruntled and have resorted to doing shoddy work, because the few who are there maybe do not give the opportunity or the space, the ladder for one to build on. Yeah. What do you make of that work environment, both legal, government, society? What would be your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, it's a two-pronged approach. I think for the youth, they need mentors. And mentors and people who have learned need to learn to give what they have. If I've been working for 20 years as an architect, I can't just have that knowledge and keep it to myself. I think you will go with it. I mean, what's going to happen to the people coming after you? I think we've got to be, and that's why I talked of character and empathy. Share what you've known to others. So it's a two-sided. Mentors, people who are architects, professionals, need to have the empathy to share their knowledge. And then the other side, the youth need to pick these. I think the two, if you asked me a question on, for instance, architecture profession, we are mandated to take on these interns who finish school in our practices and train them. Yeah. So in my office, I have trained quite a number of people. I still mentor them. I show them what I do. I work with them in what I do. They normally work for 2 years. Some stay after, others go and flourish. Unfortunately, it hasn't been done enough, Jimmy. I think at the root cause of the darkness is selfishness. When we think of our little kingdoms, me, use me, I a lot. You don't give, and you think that what you have in your little cocoon is enough, and you don't think about the world around you. I think there's so much value in giving of yourself that I think the Bible is what talks about. Blessed is he who gives is blessed. One who gives is more blessed than the one who takes.
Receives.
So I think that there is that. And then there are organizations now that government has put in place to monitor the construction industry. We have authorities like KCCA that manage infrastructure, and we all municipalities and town councils now have authorities that have planners and professionals to monitor the work in that state. But I think the human resource is not enough. Okay. Uganda is a big country, and there are very few registered architects, and they can't serve every 40 how many Ugandans. So the challenge is there to train more. We are fortunate right now that more schools of architecture are coming up. They're emerging schools, and the numbers are growing, but we still need numbers. We need more professionals. The agencies like I said, KCCA, National Building Review Board, is a new organization that manages buildings as well. We've got the Architects Registration Board and these other organizations that handle and monitor construction in Uganda. They are doing what they can, but I think that Uganda is big, yeah, and who knows what's happening out of Kampala, far away, other parts, north, south. It's a big country, but they're doing what they can at the time, and I think the situation is getting better.
Oh, wow.
This is what I call lighting a candle, not casting the darkness. We always like to sit here and say, oh, Uganda, oh, this has happened, oh, the cursing all the time. But there are some people who are lighting candles. The architects.
What is your contribution as you lament?
Yeah, I mean, someone once said when he's reading the Bible, he skips the book of Lamentations because you're not adding value. What can you do? What little speck of light can you do? If there is a situation like this, what can you do?
Actually, if we all played our part, I think the lamentations would be few.
Absolutely.
With over 17 years of experience, expertise, I'm certain you must be having a vision. What would be your burning desire for Africa as an architect?
Jimmy, that's such a broad question. But I would like to see, one of the biggest things that I like to see Africa take back, and I'm not sure whether it's a confidence issue, but the self-esteem of Africa or Africans. Yeah?
Oh, you mean we do not have self-esteem? Do we think whatever is Western is better than our own?
Absolutely. Jimmy, I think we are not confident, or what's the word, of who Africans are. Yeah? We sit and wait to to be like others. And that's a self-esteem issue. I think when you are content and aware of who you are, yeah, there's so much you are saved from. Yeah, I just shared here, I am so and so and so and this and that. That is who I am. I am not Jimmy. And I will never be Jimmy.
Jimmy, yeah, that's
so
true.
Africans are Africans. Africa is Africa. African architecture, for instance, yeah, is for Africa. And I know maybe you'll call me here on another day to talk about African architecture in Africa. Yeah, it's a long topic. Our buildings, these buildings, are aware about the climate in which they're being built. I trade at the university. I specialize in environmental design. That's my core subject. That's what I mastered in. The buildings that we see in Africa, are they African? Are they for our climate, for our culture? Are they for our materials? Yeah? Are they for our people? And that's a self-esteem issue. Yeah? I think it's an issue of not being very confident and aware. So I'd like to see an Africa where people are proud to be African, are proud to be who they are. And when you go back to original African culture and society, we were a communal people. Africans were very communal. Africans were caring. Yeah? Children were raised by village, not in the village. Yeah? That's how it was. There was character in Africa, and I'd love to see that. That is my dream. If I could see that would be excellent.
Actually, many people think the westernization that others think it is civilization, but I always want to call it westernization and not civilization.
Yeah.
Has caused many of these things you're talking about that people still think. It has come with a lot of individualism. Somebody think, you've talked of a village raising children. People now think my child is my own. If Tukacungurwa beats my child for an offense, it's wrong, I will abuse that one. And I think that has killed the character.
Yeah,
somebody thinks having a building, I have seen in a photo where Ronaldo has posed with, is posh.
Yeah.
But they do not know that Africa has actually been known for the heritage of culture since time memorial. Yeah. So somebody will copy and tell, for example, an architect, I want something like this. They give them a picture, you either do this or you have no job. I get somebody who can do it. And I think this has also contributed partly to many of the wrong reasons leading to collapse of these buildings. You've talked about the environment. You're copying something for Ronaldo. Does it fit in this environment? Does the material available, like you've mentioned, fit that kind of design? Do you think, in brief, as we wind up, that westernization has also surely affected?
Yeah, I think I like to use the word globalization and global trends. I think it has, absolutely. And where self-esteem is lowest, it has been hit highest. Where it finds globalization is, I mean, when you go to Far East, they have maintained their culture. They have retained it and allowed these things to be interpreted through their culture. But I think we could do better in that area.
Okay.
I think we could certainly do better.
Okay.
I think we could have a communal mindset, have a mindset of people. I mean, these values that we're talking about the whole evening are towards community. Yeah. Why does somebody know there is a road reserve? There is a road reserve or a swamp, a wetland, but he will deliberately build
around it.
Yeah. I've always asked the question that there are things that when you look at the buildings that were done in the past, your Mulago Hospital, all these buildings that have lasted a long time, and we're talking about the marathon. Yeah? Those buildings were put up with less technology, less resources. But when you look at the quality and compare to the ones done today, they are unmatched.
Yeah, true.
Yeah? What is it about the people, the thinking of then, that we can't have now with better resources? You know,
better technology.
Look at our neighborhoods, our residential neighborhoods, and the quality. Now, when you look at the Naguru and Kololo of the time, when you walk and people have left road reserved, footways, you know, there is a road, there is a path, then there's a garden, then there's even a small fence, not a wall, just a light fence. Then the building is way behind, it's not at the fence. I look at the current ones. So something has gone wrong, and I think it's just values and character. And if we can just go back to a bit of thinking communally, I think we can see a better Africa in the future.
Well, thank you so much for those remarks, and I think I have a minute to give you, looking straight into that camera, to give your goodbye remarks.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to first of all thank Family TV for hosting me today. I'd like to thank Young and Flourishing, and I would like to thank the viewers tonight for listening out. I encourage you to be people of character, yeah, walk the long haul, yeah, and stay blessed. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being part of this show of Ask the CEO. My name is John Jimmy Musimbi. This show happens every Thursday from 9 to 10 p.m. Do have yourself a good night.